Everything you learned in school was wrong. Christopher Columbus did not discover America. He was not even close to being the first. 500 years before Columbus was born, a Viking warrior stood on the shores of North America, built houses, started a settlement, lived there for years, and then disappeared back into history. His name was Leif Eriksson, son of Erik the Red, and the story of how he found America is more incredible than anything your history teacher ever told you, because it involves exile, murder, a one-eyed god, cursed land, and a settlement so secret that historians spent centuries arguing about whether it ever existed. It did, and we have proof. Stay with me, because this changes everything you thought you knew about the discovery of the New World. To understand Leif Eriksson, you first need to understand his father, Erik the Red, possibly the most appropriately named man in Viking history. Red hair, red beard, red temper, Erik was born in Norway and exiled from Norway for manslaughter, so he sailed west to Iceland and was exiled from Iceland for manslaughter. At this point, most men would have reconsidered their life choices. Erik the Red looked at the ocean and kept sailing west. What he found was a massive island covered almost entirely in ice. Erik did something that would make him one of history's greatest salesmen. He called it Greenland, not because it was green, because he wanted people to come and settle there. And if you call a frozen wasteland Greenland, people might actually show up. They did. Erik the Red founded the first European settlement in Greenland and raised a son there, a son who would go even further west than his father ever dreamed. Leif Eriksson grew up on the edge of the known world, Greenland, the furthest point of Viking civilization. Beyond it, according to everyone who had ever sailed, there was nothing, just ocean, endless, freezing ocean. But Leif had heard a story. A trader named Bjarni Herjolfsson had been blown off course years earlier. He had seen land to the west, trees, green hills, a coastline unlike anything in Greenland or Iceland. He had not landed. He had turned around and sailed home. And Leif Eriksson, when he heard this story, could not understand why. You saw new land, and you did not stop? Leif bought Bjarni's ship, hired 35 warriors, and sailed west into the unknown. Around the year 1000 AD, Leif Eriksson's ship makes landfall, not in one place, in 3. The first land they find, rocky, barren, flat stones as far as the eye can see. Leif names it Helluland, flat rock land. Modern historians believe this was Baffin Island, in what is now northern Canada. They keep sailing south. The second land, forested, dense trees reaching down to the water, white sand beaches. Leif names it Markland, forest land. This was likely Labrador, on the eastern coast of Canada. They keep sailing south, and then they find it. A land so beautiful, so unlike anything they have ever seen, that Leif decides to stay. Mild climate, rich soil, rivers full of salmon, and something that makes every Viking on the ship stare in disbelief. Grapes. Wild grapes. Growing naturally. In abundance. Leif names the place Vinland, Wineland, and builds houses. The first European settlement in North America, 500 years before Columbus was born. The settlement Leif built in Vinland was not a temporary camp. It was a real community. Large houses, a great hall, storage buildings. The sagas describe a place of extraordinary abundance. Salmon larger than any they had seen before. Grass so rich that cattle could graze through winter. Forests of timber that Greenland desperately needed. Leif spent the winter there, explored the surrounding land, and in spring loaded his ship with timber and grapes, and sailed back to Greenland, where he became known as Leif the Lucky, not just because he had survived the voyage, but because of what he brought back. The news spread through the Viking world. There is land to the west, rich land, Greenland, land worth going back to. After Leif, others tried. His brother Thorvald sailed to Vinland and became the first European to make contact with the indigenous people of North America. He called them Skraelings. The meeting did not go well. Thorvald was killed by an arrow, becoming, in a terrible way, the first European to die in North America. Then a larger expedition, Thorfinn Karlsefni. 3 ships, 160 people, men, women, children. They came to stay permanently. They built a settlement, had children. The first European child born in North America was a boy named Snorri, born in Vinland around 1004 AD. But the Skrælings kept attacking, and eventually the Vikings left. Not because the land was bad, because they were too few, and the people already living there were too many. For centuries, the Viking discovery of America was considered a legend, a story, a myth, an exaggeration. Columbus discovered America in 1492. Everyone knew that. And then, in 1960, a Norwegian explorer named Helge Ingstad and his wife Anne found something on the northern tip of Newfoundland, Canada. The remains of a Viking settlement, 8 buildings, a blacksmith forge, a bronze pin of Norse design, carbon dated to around 1000 AD. Exactly when the saga said Leif Eriksson was there. The site is called Lons or Meadows. It is now a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and it is the only confirmed Viking settlement ever found in North America. The legend was real, Leif Eriksson was real, and Columbus was 500 years late. So if Vikings discovered America 500 years before Columbus, why does Columbus get the credit? The answer is complicated. The Vikings did not stay. They came. They explored. They built settlements, and then, driven back by conflict with indigenous peoples and the challenges of supplying such a distant colony, they left and kept it quiet. There was no Spanish Empire broadcasting the discovery, no Pope declaring new lands for Christendom, no gold rush bringing thousands of settlers, just a few sagas, written down in Iceland, read by a small number of people. For 500 years, the greatest geographical discovery in human history sat in Viking stories, waiting to be believed. Leif Eriksson is remembered today, but not as well as he should be. In the United States, October 9th is officially Leif Eriksson Day, the day before Columbus Day. A recognition, finally, that the story of America's discovery is older and more complex than most people realize. In Iceland and Scandinavia, Leif is a national hero. Statues of him stand in Reykjavik, in Seattle, in Boston, a Viking warrior holding a hammer, looking west, toward the land he found, the land that history forgot he found, for 500 years. Leif Eriksson, son of an exile, grandson of a murderer, a man who heard a story about land to the west and refused to be the man who did not stop. He crossed the most dangerous ocean in the world. With 35 men and a borrowed ship, found a continent, built a settlement, and changed history, without anyone knowing for 500 years. Columbus gets the statues in most of the world. Columbus gets the holiday. Columbus gets the credit. But the truth is carved into the rocks of Newfoundland and written in the sagas of Iceland. A Viking was here first, 1,000 years ago. His name was Leif, and he was lucky enough to find a world that the rest of humanity would spend 5 centuries searching for. Next episode, we follow the Viking who went in the opposite direction, not west, to the unknown, east, to the heart of the most powerful empire in the medieval world, the story of how Vikings founded Russia and traded with Baghdad. Subscribe to NorsePath, because that story is going to surprise you.